Welcome, everyone. Welcome this evening. It is Monday, January 8th, 2018. I would like to call to order our public hearing of the 2018 Budget and Appropriations hearing. At this point, the public hearing is open for comments on the combined annual budget and appropriations of funds for the Wilmette Park District, Cook County, Illinois, for the fiscal year beginning on the first day of January 2018 and ending on the 31st day of December 2018. Notice of this public hearing was published December 14th, 2017 in the Wilmette Beacon, and the combined annual budget and appropriation of funds ordinance has been on display and available for public inspection at the administration offices of the Wilmette Park District, 1200 Wilmette Avenue, Wilmette, Illinois, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, since December 7th, 2017. All persons desiring to be heard will now have an opportunity to present written or oral testimony with respect to the 2018 proposed budget and appropriations. First, are there any written or oral comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, are there any written or oral comments from the public? All right, hearing none. Hearing no further comments or questions regarding the combined annual budget and appropriations of funds for the Wilmette Park District, I declare the public hearing closed. At this time, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners to order. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Foster?
Here.
Commissioner Pelleton?
Here.
Commissioner Olvani?
Here.
Commissioner Shelley?
Here.
Commissioner Wolf?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. First on our agenda is the approval of minutes.
Yes, I move to approve the minutes for the November 8, 2017 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Are there any comments or corrections?
I did have one. Sorry. It is on page 3 of 4, the paragraph that's the top paragraph that starts with Commissioner Pelleton. The way that this is written, it seems as if we're talking about K Nature Center, but I believe what we're talking about here is Langdon Park.
Yes.
So we need to put something in the sentences to reflect that we're talking about Langdon. For that paragraph and the next paragraph.
And the third paragraph.
Yes, and the third paragraph, right.
Okay. Any other comments on this one?
Just a couple small ones here. On page 1, new business, third paragraph, we talk about the 5-year plan in the first 2 paragraphs, and then we switch to the 2018 plan. So I would just put, to start, the 2018 plan has a distribution of priorities.
Okay.
Just to make it clear. I was a little confused on page 2, the paragraph that talks about the discussion turned to Gilson. And we said based on the most recent pricing, the consensus was to add $400,000 to 2018, and then I was trying to figure out for what. Was it for, wasn't for the bathrooms, because that wasn't in 2018, and I know that. So
It was a combination of a couple of the original alternates, utilities for the Sailing Beach of $167,000, and I'm really struggling to come up with the difference.
I think it was the kitchen. I think it was the kitchen.
And the kitchen?
Yeah.
Like
To
plumbing
go
all
The kitchen was another 300.
300.
yeah,
Yes.
okay.
That's
So I
what it
think we
was.
should probably state those.
Clarify that,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I should have asked John before the meeting, on page 404, the last paragraph.
Sorry, where are we? Where
Page
are we?
404 of the November 8th meeting.
Yep.
Are you,
Yeah, I'm okay.
you're okay with that, how that's
Yeah.
worded?
Mm-hmm, yes.
I was a little unclear, but okay. All right, that's fine. Then I have,
Other comments?
I think there's enough changes here to not
Okay.
actually take a vote on it.
So
bring it
let's
back.
hold off on this one and have it revised and presented at the next board meeting for approval.
Yes, thank you. I need to find the correct page. I'm going to move to approve the minutes for the December 6th, 2017 Committee of the Whole meeting.
I'll second.
Are there any comments or corrections to these? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Peliton?
Yes,
Commissioner Ovani?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes,
Minutes are approved.
thank you. Next one, December 11th?
Do I?
Yes, you don't.
I thought I had 5. Okay,
It is.
that is
oh, we're already at 5, sorry. Wow, I'm slow. I move to approve the minutes of the December 11, 2017 Truth and Taxation hearing and regular board meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have one correction. On page 2 of 6, under recognition of visitors, the second sentence says, President Wolf commented that by state law, the Park District is able to accept the money. It should say is unable to accept the money. Make that clear.
I did make that correction prior, so the
Okay.
minutes you sign
Got
will
it.
be
Okay,
corrected
great.
already.
Perfect, thank you. Any other comments?
I have, also that same paragraph, there are 2 other things. Mr. Crystal commented that the returned money for the bathroom is still available. It is a loan that was returned to him. It doesn't say that anywhere in that paragraph. It wasn't a gift, and I think it's important to note the distinction. So the returned loan for the bathroom is still available. And then on the second to last item, members, is just misspelled.
And I corrected that too, that one I caught.
Yeah, I think that's really important, to change the word from money. You want to change the word from money
Yeah.
to loan?
The loan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We make that
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
further decision will take place in the next meeting, period.
Any other comments?
On page 3 of 6, number 8A, the second, third, fourth bullet down, we said further discussion will take place at the next meeting with additional presentations by architects. It's just a little confusing because at the next meeting, we didn't have the architects.
But to that end, that was what
What was
was
said.
recorded at that meeting, so we can't revise what was actually said.
Well, I was going to say, I suggest that we don't do it verbatim, so you could just say, further discussion will take place at the next meeting.
Well,
or-
I also think that it's going to be clarified in the Lakefront Committee's
all right.
report tonight that although that was the thought process last month, that didn't happen.
Yeah, okay, all right. What?
You got that, Riley?
Trying to help you, Ryrie.
Any other comments?
Nope.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Peliton?
Yes.
Commissioner Olvani?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is communications and correspondence. I don't believe there were any in the packet. Do any of the commissioners have any correspondence or communications?
Not me.
We'll move along. Recognition of visitors. There's just staff and media in the audience this evening. So yeah.
I was going to
So-
say, there is
Somebody wanted
one
to-
resident.
One resident will.
Very distinguished.
A non-voter?
She does not.
Sign in.
I don't think she wants to speak. Approval of the voucher list is our next item on the agenda.
I move to approve the voucher list in the amount of $1,389,667.58, a copy of which is to be attached to and become a permanent part of the minutes of this meeting.
I'll second that.
Are there any comments or corrections on here?
Well, I had a question, and I'm not sure if it's directed to Steve, Jerry, or the other Steve, but we're paying Living Habitats a total of $5,000, $5,300 in 2 invoices. What services are they providing that we're it wasn't clear from the voucher list what services they're providing.
Sure. Jerry has been meeting on a pretty regular basis with Living Habitats as they review the progress of not only the bird habitat, but all the work that's been done in the wildflower garden to do cleanup and maintenance there to, get it in better shape than it was at. So they're coming out and making sure that things are growing properly, giving us advice, giving us maintenance guidance. Much of that is in response to the concerns voiced by the neighbors about the general look of the park and whether the park district was going to do proper maintenance or not. And so we thought it was a wise investment to have them make sure they monitored its progress in the first year or two of its life.
Okay, and it's just an hourly? I mean, we heard in Jerry's report about the fact that the last time she came out, couldn't really do much because everything was covered with snow. But I hadn't heard or wasn't aware, maybe other people have heard, that there were other times when she had come out.
Yes, they've been coming out on a regular basis. It wasn't just that one time that he reported on at the Lakefront Committee.
I guess Steve might help to understand kind of the time frame in which this work was done. Do we have a lag with
I don't have
payment?
the invoice in
Yeah, it
my
might be a
head as
lag
to
in the
that,
payment.
but I'm sure it's for a period of time, several months. But Jerry, do you recall off the top of your head what time frame that invoice was for?
One of them was for like September, that didn't process through, and then there was one from earlier in the year that never made it. We followed up on it. I think it was a February, one from.
All right.
Thank you.
That's better. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletin?
Yes.
Commissioner Ovani?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Voucher list is approved.
Thank you. Next up is our executive director's report.
Thank you. As we started the meeting with the hearing on the budget and appropriations ordinance, that is on our agenda this evening to approve. That sets the budget for the year, fiscal year 2018, which is the same as the calendar year. It approximates about $28.2 million in total inflows versus $26.7 million outflows for a net bottom line of about $1.5 million. So that's, when I say outflows and inflows, it's the operational revenue and operational expenses, plus the non-operational items like bond proceeds, debt payments, capital projects that aren't the day-to-day operations. But the bottom line of the budget is a $1.5 million surplus. So you have that later on under new business. Also under new business, we have a little bit of a adjustment to our non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy. This comes from a new bill that was passed by the State of Illinois legislature, Senate Bill 402, which imposed some new laws on the Local Officials and Employees Ethics Act, which we are beholden to. As a part of that process, we engaged our legal counsel to make sure that all of our language was up to date and complied with this new law. And it must be passed by January 16th, 2018. So you have the new red line copy of the ordinance. It's about 8 pages in your packet, of which some of it's the actual policy that occurs early in our packet that then refers to an attachment or an addendum or an Appendix A, which is late in the Personnel Policy Manual. So you have just the relevant pages of the now, it's hundreds of pages, the Personnel Policy Manual, but you only have the 8 relevant pages in your packet to show you what's changed, and you'll be passing an ordinance just to reaffirm that. As a side of that, on the staff side of things, we are going to be reaffirming our policy with all of our staff and getting everyone's signatures to make sure they understand and have been represented the new information, because this is an important topic that we do not take lightly. Moving on, under new business as well, you have the 2018 meeting schedule, which was voted on by this board last month. You might recall Commissioner Anderson asked if we had looked at holiday dates, and we hadn't, and we'll definitely have to reschedule the September meeting as it conflicts with Rosh Hashanah. In my discussions with Commissioner Anderson since the last meeting before tonight, the discussion focused on days such as Columbus Day and Veterans Day, whether we should be considering moving our meeting dates around those dates, and that's more what President Wolf and Commissioner Anderson would like to discuss this evening. Moving on to just kind of what's happening. Summer camp's coming. I know. there's snow and cold, and we're talking summer camp. But our brochure has been printed, it's in homes, and we have our open house camp fair coming up on January 13th, 2018, from 6 to 8 o'clock at the Community Recreation Center, and registration begins for residents on February 6th at 9 a.m. and a week later for non-residents. Online registration begins at the same time as in person, so people can register however they feel most comfortable.
You said January 13th.
Did I say 13th?
Yeah.
After I said it, I thought I might have said it wrong. It's January 30th. Thank you, Brian. And then lastly, as you'll recall, School District 39, the Village of Wilmette, and the Wilmette Public Library and the Park District all got together and did a community satisfaction survey where it asked a series of levels of questions from very general to specific about each entity, and we now have those results, and I'm very happy to report that the Park District received very high satisfaction ratings where the way they, there's about a 5 rating scale, so the top 2 combined for the most positive rating the Park District could get was 91.2% of the responses. So I think what that just does is affirm that we are a valued part of the community and that we're doing a good job, and as we all know, there's always room to improve, and it's a good set of information for us to have and use as a guidepost in future planning and decision making, and I just wanted to share all that information with you. You have the survey results as well as the crosstabs in your packet for review, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Steve? All righty. Moving along to committee reports. Lakefront Committee met last week.
Yes, the Lakefront Committee met last Thursday, January 4th, rather than on January 1st, which would be the first Monday of the month. We discussed the Lakefront Beach House and parking lot, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, not at this point, and then included a hand-drawn plan from Ronnie Crystal demonstrating his suggestion for how we might be able to fit as many as 429 parking spaces into the existing parking lot configuration with some alterations. We have passed that on, or I asked staff to pass that on to the engineers so that they could weigh in on it. It doesn't comply with our goals as a committee of reducing the footprint of the parking lot while maintaining the number of spaces. It increases them, and some people are very much in favor of that, and not necessarily commissioners, but some residents are very much in favor of that, and some residents not so much. We talked about a lot of things. The architects and engineers were not at the meeting. They didn't have anything prepared for us to review, and so there was not a whole lot of there was not a compelling reason to have them at the meeting. So we focused on residents' thoughts, concerns, and their feedback. And there were 6 or 7 residents who attended the meeting. We talked about parking lot landscaping. We talked about one person had a request for elevation so that they could see what the whole thing was going to look like, the beach house as well as the parking lot. We talked about parking turning radius because there was concern about trailers when they're trailing in and out the boats in the beginning and the end of the season. Concern, once again, about getting a bike lane on Lake Avenue. And so we explained that the reasons why the committee had decided not to pursue that. Interest in more bike racks and more space around the racks at the sailing beach, because if you trail stuff down there and you have a trailer on your bike, it's a little problematic currently. The portable toilet location at the sailing beach, the checkpoint for the main parking lot and the sailing entrance, because there's still interest from some people in having the checkpoint moved up to the top of the hill. Committee had decided against that, although on busy days, that's where staff stations a person in order to direct traffic away from the lot. There was also a suggestion from one person to increase the size of the lot in order to add spaces, and then another person who said don't enlarge the lot. So there's obviously not consensus. They weren't residents, neither one of them were residents, but they are members of the Sailing Beach, and they use the facility a lot. But both of them favored angled parking, which the committee had also ruled out because it would require us to increase the footprint of the parking lot. We are beginning to get crunched for time, and we need to get some, see what the architects have, and have them complete their conceptual drawings so we can review them as a committee and approve them, so that then we can make a recommendation to the full board, and we hope to do that at the February meeting. That means we're going to have a second meeting sometime later this month, and staff is working on arranging that with the engineers and architects, as well as the committee members. The next step is getting the full board approval, so that the architects can draw the schematics and we can move forward to the public engagement period. We're going to continue moving this forward even through the public engagement period. I was very pleased that one resident who was attended, Chris Lewis, actually asked, what can he do in order to spread the word to get public support behind it, which is fantastic, because he's had a lot of questions and a lot of comments, but he's on board with it. So, we want people to know about it, and we're going to do our best to publicize it in a variety of ways. And that's it.
Any questions for Ryrie? I just had one. There's been talk about this larger parking lot plan with more spaces.
Yes.
How will that impact, I'm guessing, the drainage? I'm guessing that you're having to do, if the parking lot's more concrete, you have to add more drainage, correct? The parking lot's
Yes, I am not an engineer, right? So I want the engineers to weigh in on it. Okay. But I don't think that Mr. Crystal has necessarily, in his hand-drawn drawings, considered that. I think he was just looking for, okay, here's the square footage or the current existing footprint, how many spaces can I squeeze into it?
Got it.
So, no, I don't think it's that refined, but I would like to have the engineers come back to us and say, well, you could do this, you can't do this.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be a long list of, we can't do what you're suggesting because.
Okay, so we're just waiting to hear from the engineers as far as.
Well, I want to hear from them, absolutely. But in the meantime, we're moving ahead with the parking lot design that the committee favored,
Okay.
and that
Reduces the footprint.
reduces the footprint,
Number of
has
spots are
perpendiculars.
Approximately the same as what we have now.
Yeah, it actually increases them slightly.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
And so just to be clear, so Mr. Crystal's was, I think, the existing footprint.
Yeah.
But it did add some spaces, so it wasn't expanding unless there was a little overage.
He reduced some of the size of the island to add more
So a little
spaces
more
there.
concrete, but none of, that's not really in line of what we've already approved.
Right.
But in fairness to him, we were going to have the engineers evaluate it and give us their official feedback.
Great.
And if there's some miracle way of
please.
doing this, we're interested in hearing it, so.
Okay. And
Yeah, I mean, I'll just chime in. I believe that the engineers that we've hired took our programming information, which was try not to necessarily increase substantially the number of parking spaces, try to reduce the amount of pavement, try to introduce green space within the parking lot, fix the drainage problems that we have in the parking lot, and solve the queuing problems out at Lake Street, increase pedestrian and bike access to the beach, and encourage bike and pedestrian access and just more natural space. And I believe that the design that they have provided us accomplishes those goals. Mr. Crystal started with the proposition that we would keep the old lot and add more spaces to it. So its footprint is the same as the old lot. it's a very, very different approach to this, and add many, many more spaces. So, you can comment on it, but he's going in a very different direction than the instructions we gave to the
Got it.
engineer.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Facilities Operations Committee.
The facilities committee met tonight. We had a pretty quick and efficient meeting. The update at the ice rink was that December was a really busy month with public skate, open hockey, the holiday skating camp, and Skate with Santa. Skate with Santa had 162 skaters, and we were able to donate 5 large boxes for the new Trier Township Food Pantry. And the winter session starts this week and lasts 15 weeks. At tennis, we are in the second session starting this week of court time, and we've sold 132 hours. And most importantly, the tennis lottery cutoff date to get your number is January 15th, and the actual in-person lottery registration day is January 27th. In paddle, programs and competitive team and drills and matches start this week, and that all continues into March. And the construction of the 2 new paddle courts is more in the design phase and looking at the contracts, and we're looking to break ground in warmer weather toward March, we hope. And then the pool, we're just in the hiring process for the summer. And in December, we had staff attend a StarGuard lifeguard training course. So we're back to having 2 staff who can train lifeguards.
Great.
And that's it.
Any questions for facilities? Thank you very much. Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, which would have met late in December, did not meet in December. So agenda items from November are being rolled over into January. The next meeting will be January 15th. Next Monday night here at Village Hall. A few key agenda items are the redesign of Key Nature Center. We should have a new scaled-back design for that. The Langdon tot lot will be only discussed in terms of the schedule for neighborhood input. There will be no design discussions. It's premature. But we may discuss as to when those neighborhood discussions will start to be scheduled. And I just want to emphasize again, summer camp mailers are out, as Steve said, and that the open house is January 30th, Tuesday evening, January 30th at the CRC. If you have questions about summer camp, that's the place to come. And the staff will take care of you. So that is all from Parks and Rec.
Thank you. Any questions for Parks and Rec? Hearing none. Golf Operations.
Okay, golf operations met on Saturday morning. We had discussion on a few different topics. The first of which was there was a letter that President Wolf received from a resident that was discussing the financial viability of the golf course. So that precipitated a discussion about 2 of the area golf courses that have been closed and are currently being sold in some form or fashion. One of them is a Highland Park public facility, and the other one is in Northbrook Green Acres. Both of them have involvement of the representative park districts. Away from that, then we moved into a discussion about bridging the gap between our budget discussion and our business plan discussion. Specifically, the hot topic was the pricing and the benefits of the various membership classes. I'm very excited to announce that we are going to begin to offer at the golf course permanent tee times in the prime hours of the day on Saturdays and Sundays to non-members. Previously, you had to be a member in order to get in the lottery in order to do that. Now, we're going to sell these 4 spots for 21 sessions during the peak golf season for $4,400. We think that that's going to be well received in the community because it gives the opportunity for, say, a group of 5, 6, 7, 8 people or even more to go in together and buy this tee time, and then they control the tee time, and whoever they want to play can play during that tee time. So it gives people the opportunity to have more flexibility and hopefully drive more play at the golf course. That precipitated a discussion, the announcement of that precipitated a discussion about the different pricing of the different memberships. So we came up with a recommendation for staff, and that's going to come out in the brochure in a week or so, or a month or so, maybe. And then lastly, the restaurant that currently operates at the golf course, their contract expired at the end of December. We have an RFP outstanding that was sent to 22 potential bidders. We received a handful of responses. Staff is in the midst of interviewing a few of those, and we expect to have a recommendation in the next couple of weeks in order to present to the board, et cetera, going forward. And the existing vendor did submit an RFP, and they are, one of the contenders in the RFP process. And that is my golf report. Oh, and we did not get enough snow in order to open up the cross-country ski trails. But there were still plenty of people that were out there snowshoeing or going wherever, but we can't do the groomer. We can't do the groomer in particular.
Any questions for golf?
Is the approval of the contract for the restaurant there a board decision, or is that just...
Eventually.
Eventually.
It is, okay.
Yes.
Thanks very much. Financial Planning and Policy Committee.
We did not meet because it would have been Christmas Day. So we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks on January 22nd, and sort of getting a fresh start after budget season is wrapping up, hopefully tonight. And we'll move on.
Thank you very much. All right, that is our committee reports. Next on our agenda is unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business before the board? Hearing none, we are at new business. First on our agenda is an ordinance for our budget and appropriations.
All right. I move to approve ordinance 2018-0-1, an ordinance making a combined annual budget and appropriation of funds for the Wilmette Park District for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2018, and ending December 31st, 2018.
I'll second that.
Do I have any questions or comments about the ordinance? This is something that we pass every year to fund all of our operations through the entire year. So it's something that's nothing new. It's something we do every year, and it's already been reviewed by all the committees, by the entire board, and we are now voting on it. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Peloton?
Yes.
Commissioner Olvani?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Ordinance is approved.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is an ordinance, a revised or ordinance with our revised anti-harassment policy and non-discrimination.
I move to approve ordinance 2018-0-1 and did you just read?
It's 02.
It's
Sorry.
R2.
Oh, okay.
Typo.
Move to approve ordinance 2018-0-2, an ordinance adopting a non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So again, this is something that the state of Illinois has said that we must have an ordinance around this. It's a new legislative law, and so it has been reviewed by our attorneys. It's been revised. We had a policy in place, so it's been revised and reviewed and have been given back to us in what you have in your packet with all the current language and any kind of updated information that needs to be included. So if anyone has any questions or comments? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Peloton?
Yes.
Commissioner Olvani?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Ordinance is approved.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is our meeting schedule for this year. As our executive director had commented, we did approve the meeting schedule for 2018 at our last board meeting. However, looking back at it, we realized that some of the board meetings fell on religious holidays and other recognized bank holidays, I guess you would call them. So Commissioner Anderson and Ms. Director Wilson and I have spoken about, should we change some of these dates? We wanted to kind of have a discussion amongst the board as to what your thinking is, because it's hard to move things every month based on different things, but wanted to know how people felt about these different holidays, specifically Veterans Day and Columbus Day. Rosh Hashanah we will definitely move because it is a religious holiday, but wanted to get feedback from the rest of the board about whether you would like to see Veterans Day and Columbus Day, those meetings move those evenings. So I'll open it up to any comments or discussion.
I would look at the District 39 school schedule, and if there's school in session, I'm fine with it. But I think sometimes we've had meetings scheduled when there has not been school in session, and that makes it tricky because a lot of times people are out of town.
And to that end, I did look at the school calendar, and there is no school on Columbus Day, but there is school on Veterans Day.
Yeah, so I would reschedule Columbus Day. And there's also a lot of tournaments, typically Columbus Day, when there's that 3-day weekend, whether it's hockey, soccer, whatever.
That would be my thought.
I think that's my
I think it's a good idea.
feedback also.
Yeah. My one thought about Rosh Hashanah, and I'm in favor of not scheduling a meeting that day, is that I'm not sure then how we draw the line on any other religious holidays.
I guess, would following the school calendar to guide those decisions be as much of a guidepost as anything?
You let the school board figure that out for us?
Correct, sure. If it's
guess
about
is-
people's availability.
Right.
you know,
No, and that's what Shelley's is addressing, and that makes sense.
Not just ours, but even like the public.
Exactly. We want to make sure everyone can
Correct.
have the opportunity to come and address us if they have a
Exactly,
concern.
right.
I mean, that's
Sure, the public,
yes,
right.
definitely.
On that front, my guess is that Rosh Hashanah is usually not a school holiday, but Yom Kippur is a school holiday.
They are both school
Both are.
holidays.
Huh?
They're
Both
both
are.
We're
school
out for
holidays.
both.
This time it's, but, okay, because
I
New
think
Trier has been kind of back and forth on that.
District 39 is always off.
New Trier is doing that during and around the construction cycle,
Right.
but it's usually both holidays, one day for each of the two holidays that are multi-day in length, but one day off of school for both.
And one other alternative is to just kind of wait till we get closer and see if there's anything on the agenda that might bring in the public and the public opinion, or could be like tonight, and when we have nobody and we don't expect anything, and you can just keep it as long as we're all going to be around.
I guess my only fear with that is that something could come up, or someone might have something last minute, and then we don't have a meeting, or we do have a meeting and they can't attend. So
Yeah.
I would prefer to have it set
Seven.
if possible.
7 commissioners, I'd say it's best to try to schedule that well out in advance.
Right, exactly. Commissioner Abbott, any comments on this?
No. I mean, frankly, the Columbus Day doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but if school's not in session, I'll agree that's probably a good metric to measure this by. Yeah, school or in or out of session.
So it sounds like we have a consensus. If there's, we'll kind of follow the District 39 school calendar. If there is school that day, then we would hold a meeting that night, and if there's not, then we would try to move that meeting. Okay, sounds good. We'll,
And as far as specific dates of moving them to, I don't have any suggestions because the village has meetings in this room on many Tuesdays and Wednesdays of the month. So we're going to have to coordinate with them. I'll get together with them tomorrow and figure it out, and I'll send that to you, and we'll get it all posted on our website appropriately.
could we possibly maybe even look, pushing it back like a week to go after like a Parks and Rec meeting or something like that on a
Absolutely an
Monday or
option.
something? Okay, okay, great.
Happy to sacrifice. Well,
Well,
we'll
no,
just
we
we'll
would
just
just-
meet ahead of time.
Right, you would meet at 6:30 and then.
Well, I'll leave it to the facilities
Usually.
committee as to what they wish to do. It's the same night, so.
I would think the same guidance of not meeting at a board meeting
Right.
would hold true for
For
committees. You
facilities as
wouldn't have a
well.
committee meeting if you're not having a board meeting.
All right, well, I call dibs on the third Monday for Parks and Rec.
Okay, so we'll have staff
We'll figure it all out.
figure it all out. Okay, good. I think that's it under new business. Does anyone else have any other new business that needs to be addressed? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
These are for you.
Somebody needs
Total info, weather,